We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in order to secure these rights, that's why governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's the reason why we have government, in order to protect our rights, our human rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because obviously, those are unalienable, those are self-evident, such as all men are created equal. That's self-evident, right? That's endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. This is rights by God. God embedded these rights amongst us. And among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the right to bear arms and freedom of speech, right to petition, lots of rights. But those are the three mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. So it's ironic that even though they're saying all men are created equal, if you're a white male who didn't own property, you had no right to vote. If you were a female, you didn't have a right to vote. Native Americans and black people had no rights to vote. By the Constitution, the Revolutionary War forgot most of the people. So it's very hypocritical here that you have all men are created equal. All men are created equal, right? In the very top of the Declaration of the Independence, but go down, then they talk about the merciless Indian savages. All men are created equal except for them damn Indians, those Native Americans. So the passage is, King George III has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. So wait, are you talking bad about the British here? Because now you're saying that Indian savages are the worst. They're the worst of everybody, except for the king. The king's worse than them, but they're pretty bad. Well, which is it? Okay, so it's hypocritical, right? It also it's racist. So even though there are probably bad Native Americans that were, savage and that were killing a lot of people, there was also a lot of white people that were savage. Johnny Logan, he went on a rampage after his entire family was wiped out by Pennsylvania frontiersmen. So you had Pennsylvania that killed this Native American's entire family, his wife, his father, his mother, his brother, his children, everybody. Johnny Logan the orator, a Mingo chief, and he just went on, according to Native American tradition, if someone kills your entire bloodlines, well, you're allowed to kill them, right? An eye for an eye. So if someone killed one of yours, you were allowed to kill one of theirs. But it was us with the Pequot War burning down the Mystic River Massacre, where we went ahead and killed lots of sleeping women, children, and old people. So the total warfare was also white people's thing too. So it wasn't just an Indian savage thing. The problem with this passage is that it seems to be talking to a white audience, and they don't try to say that some Native Americans were their friends. The Tuscarora and the Oneida were allies to, George Washington. So you had 6 tribes of the Iroquois, the 6 nations, and 2 of those nations, the Oneida and the Tuscarora, had allied with, the Americans. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out too good in the Naden-Hutton Massacre. So in the Naden-Hutton Massacre, you just had these sleepy-eyed Christian allies, Native American allies, right? So they were pro-America, fought for America, or they were Christian, or they were neutral. So basically just praying Indians. They call them praying Indians. So there was a Naden-Hutton Massacre in March 1782. This is after the final battle, the so-called final battle, the Battle of Yorktown. So this is after the Battle of Yorktown. This is, in August, this is in 1782 in March. And this was the Pennsylvania militia. So these are Americans who killed a lot of praying, not praying mantis like praying, but praying Indians. So peaceful, Christianized allies of the Americans were killed by the Americans. So even the allies were being killed. It wasn't just the enemies. So this is the problem that I have with this passage. So while there are no doubt merciless Indian savages that they had to, fight against, this goes to the heart of their racism, since they didn't counter that by saying, oh yeah, but the Oneida, Tuscarora were good people. So merciless Indian savages. All of them are merciless Indian savages because amongst us whites, right, fuck those Indians. That's the problem with that passage. So it's fucking racist. It doesn't balance it out. All men are created equal except for them goddamned Indians. So, and this, we'll see this, time and time again. All throughout American history, from the French and Indian War to the, 3 world wars before the French and Indian War, and then the American Revolution, and then after the American Revolution is over. In 1781, Battle of Yorktown, Treaty of Paris is 1783. So the war is over in 1783, but for another 10 to 12 years, the U.S. government continues to fight against Native Americans. They never stop fighting against Native Americans. This whole fucking war was against Native Americans. The very first battle, the very first war, they called it Lord Dunmore's War. But what Lord Dunmore was doing was going after that Johnny Logan. So Johnny Logan's whole family got wiped out, so he just went on the frontier killing that person and, anybody else. And so the royal governor of Virginia declared war against the Native Americans and went into the, territory to go after Johnny Logan, at least the Mingo tribe or the people that he was with. So they go to Johnny Logan, they go with the people that he was with, and that's the very first battle of the American Revolution, the Battle of Point Pleasant. This is Americans and British, people that will eventually break off as Americans, but when the Americans were British, fighting against Native Americans. So the very first battle was against Native Americans, and then the very last battle of the American Revolution was the Battle of Blue Licks. The Battle of Blue Licks was fought in Kentucky. 300 natives ambushed and routed 182 Kentucky militiamen. So, 182 had died in the Battle of Blue Licks, Americans. So the Battle of Point Pleasant was victorious for the British, for the whites, right? So do you like that? Because I don't side with them at all. I side with Johnny Logan. I side with Simon Girty. So the Battle of Blue Licks, right? Now you're getting killed back just like you had started killing. So my point with this is the first battle of the Revolution was against Native Americans, and the last battle of the Revolution was against Native Americans too. So 50 British Rangers, but 300 natives ambushed the Kentucky militiamen. So when the first battle and the last battle of the American Revolution was fought against Native Americans, then perhaps it's not for freedom and independence and all this bullshit that we're supposed to believe. The Northwest Indian War. I had told you before, after the American Revolution was over, you had more Indian wars that carried on. Well, the Indians didn't stop. There's Pontiac's Rebellion. That was the French and Indian War. Pontiac kept on fighting. The same shit's going to happen here with the Chickamauga. The Chickamauga Cherokee Dragon Canoe is going to keep on fighting. The Old Northwest Indian War. So this is in Ohio. The Ohio Indian War, the Miami Campaign. That's what the U.S. Army record says. So this is the war against the Miami Native Americans. The war for the Ohio River boundary. This is the also Little Turtles War. So Little Turtle was there. Blue Jacket was there. Buchan Gahilas, the Delaware Lenape Roundhead. Wyandotte was there. Stay Yegtha and Igushawa, which was Ottawa. Miami was there, Shawnee was there, Lenape was there, Wyandotte, Ottawa. These are all Native American tribes that were in Ohio. But George Washington declared war against all the Native Americans in Ohio. All the Miami, all the Shawnee, all the Delaware, all the Wyandotte, all the Ottawa. And then there was also Ojibwe and Ottawa and Potawatomi and Kickapoo, Kaskaskia, Wabash, Confederacy, Wea, Piankishaw. Chickamauga Cherokee was there, and the Wyandotte, the Huron are the Wyandottes. So this is the Confederacy, Blue Jacket too. So this is the Confederacy that George Washington fought against after the American Revolution. So you have the Cherokee in the Southwest, and then you had the Northwest. So we were still fighting Native Americans. We still want to steal their land. After the Treaty of Paris, we were told that British says, you can have the Northwest Territories. So they relinquished control of it, but that was Native American lands. Did they even have control to begin with? But because George Washington had signed the fucking document, he didn't sign it, but his whatever. But he had basically, because the British had relinquished the Northwest Territory, the Americans thought that that was theirs for the taking, in spite of the Potawatomi, in spite of the Kickapoo, in spite of the Wea and the Piankeshaw and Dragon Canoe and the Huron and the Ottawa and the Blue Jacket, Little Turtle, Igashua. So, in spite of all those tribes being there, they went to war against Ohio to take their fucking land. So these are wars against Native Americans directly. Before, you could say during the American Revolution that these were allies with Britain, and some of them were. Britain would give them weapons to fight, but the Native Americans were definitely fighting their own war, because once the British stopped fighting, they kept on going. But eventually you're going to have Hamar's defeat, St. Clair's defeat, 1790, 1791. 1,000 American soldiers are going to be killed. And then that's when George Washington sends Mad Anthony Wayne, and then he conquers Ohio. The Treaty of Greenville happens in 1795. So 1795, that's what, 20 years after the Declaration of Independence, that's when we finally defeated the Native Americans, which was the fucking point of the Revolutionary War, to steal Native American land. That was the point, to take their fucking land, and that's immediately what we set about doing as soon as we got our independence. You also have, it's not surprising, that's what I'm trying to say, this phrase, the merciless Indian savages, is not surprising. The Naden Hutton massacre, right? Just killing a bunch of peaceful Native Americans who allied with us for no fucking reason. That was Pennsylvania militia in 1782, which was after the Battle of Yorktown. The Battle of Yorktown was the last significant battle against Great Britain, but we're still fighting Native Americans. We're still fighting them. And we're against peaceful Native Americans, just massacring the fuck out of peaceful Native Americans in the Naden Hutton massacre in March of 1782. That's why 2 months later you're going to have William Crawford, who's going to get burnt at the stake because he goes into Ohio. So this is during the American Revolution. Crawford's going into Ohio, 500 volunteers, and then he gets attacked and then he's burnt at the stake. Right? August 1782. Again, these are 3 battles against Native Americans when the British are nowhere to be found. And they said that there's 50 British Rangers, so it's the last significant battle against, last major battle with the British. All these are like little skirmishes. So it's obvious, during the war, you had the Sullivan campaign, the Sullivan expedition, where Washington orders Sullivan to kill 40 different households of Iroquois in New York. And so that's a genocide. That's total warfare. It's going after the children, women, and the elderly. And immediately after, the war is over, they're attacking Northwest Indian War, the Miami, Cheyenne, or Shawnee, Wyandotte. So, the Sullivan campaign showed what George Washington was capable of, a genocide, an exercise in total warfare, a scorched earth campaign, like Sherman's March to the Sea, or like a nuclear war, right? You just kill anything and everything, bomb anything. Everything on anything that moves. Just bomb every fucking thing. That's total warfare. Attacking children, attacking women and the elderly who's sleeping, that's terrorism. That is terrorism. So they did that during the American Revolution. After the Revolution was over, you had the Ohio War, the Northwest Indian War, the war against the Miami. I like Little Turtle's War because Little Turtle was the fucking leader. And by putting a face on it, perhaps we as Americans could actually learn who the fuck Little Turtle was. What the fuck? Little Turtle's War? When the fuck did we go to war with Little Turtle? We never stopped with our warfare, right? Genocide from the very get-go. So while declaring independence from Britain was great, genocide Native Americans, holding slavery, both the Declaration and, the anti-slavery passage was kicked out. Merciless Indian savages, that's being institutionalized. That kind of racism is being institutionalized. And the 40 Iroquois towns, they had famine. They all died. It was really bad. So it's no surprise to me that in 1776 that you would have a bunch of racists that would talk about merciless Indian savages. Right? Sam and John Adams, John Hancock, Sam Huntington, Ben Franklin, Tom Jefferson, Caesar Rodney, Robert R. Livingston, Roger Sherman, Tom Jefferson. So all these guys were like, yes, fuck those merciless Indian savages. But George Washington, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison didn't sign the Declaration of Independence. Which is just a fun little fact. But those are the racists. John Adams, John Hancock, Sam Adams, Sam Huntington, Ben Franklin, Tom Jefferson, Caesar Rodney, and Robert Livingston, Roger Sherman, all the signers of the Declaration of Independence, who was like, yeah, fuck those merciless Indian savages. What about our friends? Nope, none of them are our friends. We're a bunch of white, Anglo-Saxon, racist assholes. And yeah, so merciless Indian savages. That's what we're celebrating because we want to kill a bunch of Native Americans and steal their fucking land. Ohio, you're welcome, Ohio. It was all Native American land. Now Ohio sits pretty because of all the genocide and murder that George Washington and company had after the American Revolutionary War.